3 of my next level private practice workshop. So I'm just live streaming here on YouTube. Now I'm going to get going for the workshop. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone's having a good evening. Welcome to our final night of the next level private practice workshop. So I think there were about 50 people in the waiting room when I just hit start. So I'm sure people will kind of filter in over the next minute or so, but I'll go ahead and get started. This is a fun night. This is actually, I think, my favorite night. So the next level private practice, advanced strategies for profit, efficiency, and expert positioning in your integrative psychiatry private practice. Just a quick reminder, excuse me, sessions are recorded and you'll be sent a link to the recordings after each session, but that link is going to expire on March 12th at 6 p.m. Pacific, because we want you all not to just like reserve this in the background to maybe watch in the future. We want you to watch it now. And then Kate mentioned to me, someone had asked about session slides. So it hadn't occurred to me to release those, but since you guys want them, we're just setting up how to make them available to you, but we're going to somehow email them out or link to them on the session's recording page, but with temporary access. That'll expire on that day as well. Questions that come up as I'm presenting, feel free to drop those in the chat because I'll do a Q&A at the end. All right, without further ado, tonight we're going to be talking about reposition, repackage, and raise your rates, the path to a premium practice. And so what we're going to cover is how to take services you already provide, but reposition them to be more appealing to your patients so you can charge more for them. How to add new services and features to your practice to increase your value. How to pitch your established patients on new services, and the finances of transitioning from an insurance practice to a cash practice, or just the finances of any kind of transition, like whether it's that kind of insurance to cash practice or raising your rates. And what I love about this is that you're not starting from scratch, but you're squeezing more juice out of what you already have. No matter how your practice is going, whether it's like big or small or chaotic or whatever issues you have, with some changes, you can squeeze so much out of it than you probably are. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. I'm also going to be going over a little bit more of an introduction, more details on Dream Practice Academy for those of you who are interested, my paid program. So this is the question I like to start off with when I talk about this topic. What's the difference between a psychiatrist who charges $300 and $1,000 an hour? And I'll tell you what it's not. What everyone thinks it is, but it's not. It's not clinical skill. And I know that sounds crazy to a lot of people. I know it maybe even sounds wrong. Like, shouldn't fees be correlated with clinical skill? But we live in the world we live in. We don't live in an ideal world. And the truth is that what you charge or what you can command is based not on how good you are, but how good patients perceive that you are. And that's a really big difference. It's about how patients feel you are in terms of what your value is that you offer. So these are all excuses. A lot of people say, oh, I'll charge more once I do some additional training, once I get some more clinical experience, or it's too much pressure. If I increase my fees, I won't be able to fulfill expectations, or I'm not ready yet. If you have, I'm assuming a baseline amount of clinical skill. I'm not talking about you really don't know what you're doing and you're charging a lot. I'm not talking about that. But once you reach $300 an hour, anyone charging that amount probably has some pretty good clinical skill. So what does it take someone to get to more, to get to these like astronomical numbers or high numbers that maybe even seem wrong, that just seem crazy? But what the thing you have to keep in mind is that the patients are paying them because they want to. Anyone paying you is paying you because they feel that the value you are providing is worth what you're charging. So how do people charge fees that other people think are insane? Well, keep in mind, again, patients aren't stupid. They are paying those fees when they feel they are getting more in return than what they're paying for. And at a certain point, it's not your clinical skills that are limiting you from charging more. It's the way you are positioning your clinical skills into specific services that is the limiting factor. And remember that while we are offering a process, what patients really want is a result. So can you position your services in a way that you're offering a result rather than a process? A good example is psychotherapy. Like I remember kind of being taught when I did more psychodynamic, psychoanalytic type therapy training when I was in residency, to kind of never promise anything. Oh, this is a long process. It could take years and this and that. But how appealing is that really to a patient? Do you really want to be told, pay me hundreds of dollars an hour for years and maybe you'll get better, maybe you won't? That's understandably not very appealing. What if you can say, hey, I'm not 100% sure, but based on my extensive experience, I really think I can get you feeling significantly better in these specific ways in 3 to 6 months. I think there's ways to offer this and position this where you're not being misleading, you're not over-promising, but you are giving that tangible result to patients where they're more hopeful and they're more excited and they believe in what you offer more. So always think what's in it for them, not what's in it for you. This is why I like business and why I truly think of business offerings as win-wins. It's not about tricking someone into pay you money. It's how to really get into someone's head, imagine what they want, and then give it to them. Isn't that a win-win? Like you get paid and also they get a service they really want. You want to think of services, the services that will make you insanely wealthy are the ones that are a win-win for you and the patient, where everyone gets what they want. And I always say, don't miss opportunities. There's this little story I like to tell. This Marina Med Spa is this like aesthetics spa I go to, when I want to get like filler or a facial and things like that. So I remember I was there, this was a couple of years ago. I was there getting whatever injection I was getting. And at the end, I asked the person, I'm like, got my thing. I'm always really happy with what they do. Hey, what else do you think I need? I wanted to kind of do something else. I didn't really know what. I wanted her to recommend something. And she's kind of looking at me. She's like, no, I think everything's good. I don't think you need anything. And which was fine. She probably felt that she was, not trying to oversell me, but it was a missed opportunity because I wanted to pay her money. I was like really happy with what she was doing. I didn't almost didn't care what it was, some special facial or some peel or something. It was a missed opportunity for her to sell me something. And I just tell that story because often we're afraid to sell because we think it's gonna seem salesy or in a negative way, or that we're pushing things on people that the person doesn't want it. People who like you and trust in your professional abilities want to pay you money for your services. There are people out there who would pay you for things that you're not offering them, and those are missed opportunities. So I like to say, think bigger and commit to being the best. I use charging higher fees as motivation to be the best at what I do. I charge a little bit more. This was especially earlier when I started my practice, is charge a little more than I felt comfortable, and then figure out how to be so good that I earned it and more. And then I would charge a little bit more, and then I would study and improve and get even better. And that allowed me to improve my clinical skills relatively quickly in the early years of my practice. So we're going to talk about how to get new patients at higher fees, which is kind of what we were just talking about, but also how to maximize your revenue with your current patient panel. And the first way to start is repositioning what you already do in a way that increases perceived value. And so can you reposition your current services into a complete patient experience? And what I'm about to show you is taking what you already do. You're not changing anything about what you do, but you just talk about it in a better way. So here are some examples. Let's talk about treating generalized anxiety disorder with an integrative approach, or even just if talking about treating generalized anxiety disorder. It's probably one of the most bread and butter conditions we treat in psychiatry. It tends to be very responsive to treatment, pretty straightforward to treat, patients get better. But imagine the difference between saying, come to me, we'll do some appointments, and I'll try to get you better, versus saying, I'm going to reduce your anxiety by 80% in 3 months without depending on medication, while using a combination of medication and holistic approaches. It's the exact same thing you probably are already doing, but you're saying it in a way that is much more appealing to the patient. Let's talk about peripartum psychiatry. Basically anyone who treats women in the peripartum period, we all know what to do. It's a risk-benefit discussion. You try to reduce medications in the year or so prior to pregnancy to get the person on the minimum dose during pregnancy, or off if they don't need to be on it. But obviously, if they need it, then you stay on it at the minimum effective dose, and then you monitor closely during pregnancy. Anyone who does it knows how to do it. It's pretty straightforward, and the process is the same. However, doesn't it feel different to the patient if instead of saying, I work with peripartum women, you say, I help women reduce or eliminate medication use in 6 months to prepare for pregnancy, so they can have safe and healthy pregnancies. It's the same thing, you're just explaining it better. Or treating ADHD treatment for entrepreneurs. Instead of just saying, I'll treat your ADHD. I'll help you build your business and make more money by streamlining your focus and attention through treating your ADHD. Some other examples of people who are in my program that I've kind of coached them through sports psychiatry. Reduce your golf handicap in 6 months by mastering your mental game. First responders. Process your healthcare trauma so you can find meaning and purpose in your work again. It's taking it from being a process and making it an outcome so the person can visualize where they'll be after working with you. Psychedelic integration therapy. I help terminally ill patients have an end-of-life experience that brings insight, heals relationships, and brings peace for family members. Here's an example of someone in my program who created these packages around ADHD treatment, where instead of just come to me and I'll assess you and treat your ADHD, it's an entire package, and she has different versions of it based on if the person has a past diagnosis of ADHD or not, or if they have any comorbid conditions. And it includes a certain number of sessions, and also includes an outcome. Like by the end of this, we'll have you stabilized. I'll let you know if you have this diagnosis. We'll have you stabilized on the right medication regimen. And she knows this niche like the back of her hand, so she knows how many appointments are required. So I'm just gonna turn on my little heater here. And so she has been very effective with those kinds of packages. Now, strategy number 2 is, can you offer the same services to people that you already offer to people who have more money? Now, I know what I'm about to share people may think is wrong or have issues with. I'm not telling you you have to do it. I'm just telling you this is what people do who charge those higher fees. They offer their services to people who, one, have more money, and also for whom the problem is more catastrophic. It's more significant. It has greater costs. Now, if you do what I'm about to share, it doesn't have to be the only people you work with. I think that, again, there's people who want to give you their money for you to give them your services. And why not charge the people who can afford it what they can afford to pay, so that you can give discounted services to people who can't afford it? To me, that's an ideal way to organize your practice. Have people pay you who can afford it, so that you can, on a discretionary basis, on what you think makes sense, offer the sliding scale to people who can't. So anyway, some examples. Instead of college students with ADHD, what about hedge fund managers? Yes, college students deserve ADHD treatment, but a hedge fund manager who's maybe making decisions that are worth millions of dollars, they will pay anything in order to have that problem solved. What about, instead of 20-somethings with relationship issues, what about 50-somethings going through divorce, who have more resources and also are managing more, where they have children, there's financial things they're trying to sort out in terms of the separation. If you help them through that process, it's much more significant in their lives in terms of the cost, but also the benefit they get. What about, instead of just anyone who has a substance abuse issue, what about entertainment industry professionals who, again, it's potentially professionally catastrophic, and they maybe especially need discretion in the clinicians that they're working with? Just think of what group of people wants to pay for the best. There are people out there who don't think they are completely cost insensitive. They don't really care what it costs. They care, are you the best? And if you're selling based on your cost, they almost look at that as you must not be very good. And they want to actually see you're charging a lot, or else they just don't think you're that good. And so those are the people that you want to think of, like the niche that wants to pay for the best, that you also have the skill set to help. And then how do you position an offering to them that speaks to an outcome? So now strategy number 3 is adding new services to increase your value. Sorry, got a little bit of a runny nose here. So again, I'm just throwing out some examples here. It doesn't have to be anything really complicated, but like, let's think of, maybe what you do now is mostly like bread and butter meta management. What if you also add in some basic lab testing? What if you add in functional lab testing? Excuse me. What if you add pharmaceutical grade supplements, or you have a service where you help optimize supplement regimens? I have so many patients that come to me on like some crazy supplement regimens, and I help them peel out like, hey, this you probably don't really need. These 2 things have the same ingredient, remove that. You can use this other one that has all of these ingredients, that has more evidence-based, so kind of optimizing that. Offering psychotherapy or additional psychotherapy techniques. Or new referral sources for other practitioners the patient needs. Maybe having like a really solid referral network of other practitioners the patient wants to see, and you're able to send them to those practitioners. Just those relationships are valuable. Maybe you offer home visits. Maybe you offer family sessions. Maybe you offer a service where you're coordinating care for patients with complex medical issues, ADHD or neuropsych testing, neurofeedback, cranial electrical therapy, CES, osteopathic manipulative treatment, OMT. There's a lot of people in Dream Practice Academy who are DOs who have in their practice brought in some OMT into their practice in a way that complements their psychiatric care. Now, how to pitch your established patients on new services. It's good to just remember there's only 3 ways to make more money in your practice. Every way is one of these 3 ways. 1, you charge more per hour. 2 is you get more patients. 3 is you increase the number of times you see your current patients. It's called increasing customer lifetime value, essentially increasing revenue from individual patients. So let's talk about number 3. Let's talk about those patients you really like. And I'm going to pull up that private practice audit worksheet that I was showing a little bit earlier in the week and show an example from this. But those patients you really like that you maybe don't see that often, like you're just seeing them every couple of months, they're stable on whatever medication. Can you pitch those patients on therapy? Maybe those patients don't know you can do therapy, and all you have to do is mention it. Oh yeah, like I've been meaning to like talk through my relationship issues with someone. What about if you offer home visits to patients who prefer them and you charge a travel fee? Or you pitch specialized lab testing to patients who maybe don't know you do it, if assuming of course you feel it's clinically appropriate. We talked a little bit about some of the functional testing last night, and maybe you have some patients in mind where, oh yeah, this might be appropriate for this patient, but they probably don't know I'm able to do it. Maybe you pitch psychedelic integration therapy if a patient brings up that they're on their own playing around with psychedelics. You may help them. You offer a service where, hey, I can help you process your experience that you have with the psychedelics. The secret sauce is this: you go to your best and ideal patients and you ask them what they want, and then what they're looking for, and then you ask yourself, can you create a service or package to provide it for them? And I learned this from this book. I highly recommend this book. I recommend it so much that if you join Dream Practice Academy during our little launch period, I'm going to give it to you for free. So if you think you might join, maybe wait to buy it, but absolutely you should own this book. Everything kind of I'm teaching you right now, or a lot of what I'm teaching you right now, I learned from this book. And let me give you an example. So I think people remember if those of you who were here on Monday, I showed an example of this private practice audit that someone in my program gave for me to review, and I kind of color coded it by insurance, and I calculated average value per claim by insurance, then the total value per claim by insurance, and I gave recommendations on the insurance. But the other thing of like what insurances they should drop versus keep, because this was someone transitioning from an insurance to a cash practice. What I also did was I took her ratings of the patients, made them from grades to like letter grades to percentages. so that I could then create like a total score and then reverse sort from kind of her favorite patients to her least. Now, what we talked about on Monday was like, look, we all know deep down that the patients, 10% of our patients are causing 90% of our headaches, right? And you have to be able to have those conversations, either setting boundaries or sending them on their way to work with practitioners who are better fit. But I want to talk about now leveraging the opportunities. So these patients, some of these, like this column, revenue potential, is how frequently you're seeing someone. Higher numbers are more frequent. What about these patients she's really likes that she's not seeing that often? You know, that are either, one is lost to follow-up essentially, two is just a very stable med management patient you're maybe seeing every 3 to 6 months. What about if you let those patients know about functional lab testing that they might be relevant to them, or that you offer psychotherapy, or those patients that are lost to follow-up, maybe you send them a follow-up email, get them re-engaged in treatment. So once you kind of do this audit, it's an opportunity for you to see like both patients that aren't a good fit, but also how do you offer more for those patients that are a really good fit? Like, remember that Marina Med Spa story I told you? These patients who like you and you have a good relationship with them, they may want to pay you for more services. They just don't know you offer those services. So don't miss those opportunities. Sorry, I'm just moving my little Zoom thing. So now, a bonus that you're going to get by virtue of attending this workshop is our moving up the value chain worksheet. That's what this is called. Going from the $300 an hour to the $1,000 an hour, whatever it is moving up the value chain, offering services that are more valuable to your patients. So we're going to drop this in the chat, but it's an exercise for you to go through and put down the services you're currently providing. How do you reposition those services into a package or a patient experience as opposed to a process? What are new services you could offer that you don't currently offer? Who are your favorite 3 to 10 favorite patients? And what potential new services can you pitch them on? I know this seems maybe like a simplistic worksheet, but truly just going through the audit and going through this exercise will do a lot for getting you to get more out of the practice you already have. And we haven't even talked about getting new patients, right? Obviously you can attract higher value patients by positioning your services this way, but you can also do this with your existing patients. Okay, sorry, there we go. Take a sip of my tea. Now let's talk about some advanced private practice financials. If you were here on Monday and you saw the way I went through that private practice audit, you have a sense for how much I like spreadsheets and how much I like numbers. I'm not like an advanced, statistician or something, but to me, I like numbers that tell a story. If you're going on gut instinct can lead you astray versus numbers don't lie. Numbers tell you what's going on and what you need to do. And so how do you think about advanced private practice financials in a linear, logical way? If one, you want to increase your rates, you're moving up the value chain, or two, you want to transition from an insurance practice to a cash practice. So what I'm going to show you, it's a lot of math, but I think it's really fun. I think you're going to get a lot out of this. Let's drop the private practice calculator in the chat so people can follow along with me on this. You're going to get this as a bonus. And there are multiple tabs of this, okay? So we're going to go like one tab at a time. Now, this first tab is how you think about the math of transitioning from either a salaried position to a contractor position. This is going to be read-only format, so you'll want to make a copy, and that'll be like your copy that you can edit. So I know most of you, or a lot of you in this more advanced workshop already have practices, so this first one might not be relevant to you, but let me just show you how it works. So I think some of you on this workshop are haven't started your practice yet, but you're just more interested in some of the advanced content. Let's just say like you make $250,000 a year. I'm just kind of come up with some arbitrary numbers. Let's say your health insurance benefits are worth about $500 a month. Let's say you get 4 weeks of paid vacation a year. let's say you're paid for 40 clinical hours a week, but you really work 60 clinical hours a week. I think this is pretty common. You'd be surprised how low your hourly rate is. When people see this, they're often like, oh, wow. And I know multiple six figures seems like a lot of money, but that company's not paying you multiple six figures because like it's a charity. They're doing it because they're probably getting 3 times this as reimbursement for your services, and that's how they're making money. So, and this other one is if you're in a contractor position, which is more usually people know what their monthly income is. They work a certain number of hours and they make a certain amount of money. Usually it's not that much. Usually it's a little bit more though than a job, you know, some amount of money. Why this is important, and this is often the math I go over with people when they're thinking about leaving their job and starting a practice. A lot of people get really caught up in the like, should I do an insurance practice or a cash practice? You know, I usually recommend a cash practice, but I also think if you're making $89 an hour, you can make 3x that in your own insurance practice. And so, and there are some cases where an insurance practice is a reasonable stepping stone to having a cash practice. Because let's look at it this way, like even just, let's take some pretty typical reimbursement rates. And these are kind of middle of the road. Let's say for med management follow-up is a $150 reimbursement. Let's say for a therapy appointment that's an hour, you're really not getting reimbursed that much more. Let's say you're working 20 hours a week. Now the percentage therapy hours is the more you do therapy, the more your hourly rate skews to this. Typically, people make more per hour with med management appointments. You know, in this case, 2 med management appointments is $300. 1 therapy appointment is $175. However, in my experience, therapy is a little bit more enjoyable, and you also build your practice faster because you're seeing those patients more frequently. So there's no right or wrong whether you have a more therapy dominant practice or more med management dominant practice. Honestly, my days are 90% therapy. My week is 90% therapy because that's just what I like, and those are the patients I've been working with a long time. But I'm just gonna say 50% of your hours are therapy, just for the sake of the calculation, have it be in the middle. You can still see this is like 3 times what you're making in a job, and that you can essentially make, let's see how many hours, and I just put in $1,000, $2,000 a month as estimated expenses. That's high. That's assuming you're like a psych MP and you have a collaborating psychiatrist. Let's even just say it's 1,000. How many hours a week does this person, this metaphorical person we're talking about, have to work in order to make this amount of money? You can kind of play around with the numbers. I guess it's around 25 hours. Not even 25 hours. 22 hours? 23 hours? Yeah, basically this a hypothetical person's working 60 hours making this amount and can make the same amount in 23 clinical hours a week. So this is where I'm like, yeah, just get out of this job. I don't care if you start an insurance practice. I don't care if you start a cash practice. Get into your own practice where you have that autonomy and control. But let's talk about if you're doing I'm kind of going out of order. Let's say an insurance to cash transition, okay? So let's say you started with the insurance practice. Now you want to go to a cash practice and you have a patient panel that you're wondering about transitioning. Let's say you announce your whole patient panel, I'm going from insurance to cash. You're going to lose a lot of your patients. However, what you don't realize is you can still lose a lot of those patients and still make the same amount of money you made before, but working fewer hours. So let's just like play around with some numbers. Let's say this is someone who's at $10,000 a month with their insurance practice. Let's say they're working, I want to get their hourly rate to, let's get their hourly rate to like what we calculated here, around $238. So let's say they're working, yeah, it's close enough. Let's say this is their average hourly rate. Now, the question then is, how much do you need to charge in your cash practice, and how many of your patients need to come with you in order for the transition to make sense? And this is also where I point out to a lot of people when I'm doing my individual coaching with people in Dream Practice Academy, you actually don't have to charge that much to be making a lot more than you're making in the insurance practice. And it should be strategic, because the more you charge, the more you're going to make per hour, but the fewer patients are going to come with you, versus the less you charge, the less you'll make per hour, but more patients will come with you and you'll retain more revenue. So there's no right or wrong answer. You want to play around with some of the different numbers. But let's just play around with some different numbers. Let's just say for a therapy appointment, I'll kind of be somewhat conservative. Let's just say that's $325. Let's say a short follow-up is $250. Let's say the person's, I'm just going to put in 10 clinical hours a week right now, kind of matching what they were doing before. Let's say half of the hours are therapy hours. Oh wait, this is wrong. I realize that's right. There's an error in this calculator. It should be divided by that. There we go. So sorry, if you already copied it, maybe you want to recopy it because there was an error in my calculator. Basically this, you can see here the average hourly rate would be about 413. So nearly double, meaning that half of your patients could leave you and you're still making the same amount. So let's play around with it. Let's say this person has a patient panel of 100 patients, and let's say 50% of the patients come with them. In that case, 50 patients are going to come with them. Wait, something's not mathing with this math. Pre-transition hours is 10, right? Their current hourly rate's at $231. Their new hourly rate's this. They're going to maintain almost 90% of their revenue working half as many hours. So they're going to go from like 10,000 to 9,000. That's not crazy. But what if they're like, I really want to maintain all of my revenue. Let's maybe put these fees a little bit higher. Let's say this is $375. Let's say this is $275. Oh, great. Look, and then I'm retaining that money. But like maybe you want to have more conservative more conservative estimates. Only 30% of your patients are coming with you. Okay, well now I realize I have to charge a little bit more or just have a little bit of savings, whatever it is. But you can see then you're going from 10 hours to 3 hours. So the reason to do projections like this is not because you can will the result by the projection. I was talking to someone on my team about this the other day where like income projections are not like wishful thinking. I like to do two versions of income projections, a best case scenario and a worst case scenario. Best case scenario, a best case likely scenario, just to know what's possible. But also I want to hedge against maybe a worst case scenario so that I'm planning for that. And I have like the finances saved or savings or whatever to get me through those periods. Now this last one, there's an ROI one, I'll be going over that later. But this third one that I'm going to go over right now is raising rates. So let's say you have a cash practice, but you're optimizing it. So this is where you can think through like, again, even if you were to dramatically increase your rates and you were to lose some patients, you could still keep a lot of your revenue. I typically just for, like ethical reasons, I don't like to jack up rates on existing patients unless it's a patient that's really kind of pushing boundaries and stuff like that and you're not getting adequately compensated for all the work that you're doing. I like kind of to more gradually increase fees with existing patients, but it also just shows you overall the impact that increasing rates can have on your revenue. So I don't know, let's just play around with some numbers. I'll put 3. I know some of you in cash practices are way undercharging, so maybe I'll put kind of low numbers here. Let's say you're working 20 hours a week. Let's say most people coming in are doing more med management, so I'll say a kind of a smaller percentage is psychotherapy. So, maybe coming out to like $300 an hour, which isn't chump change. Again, I always say this, you don't have to charge that much to make a good income compared to what you would get in a job. But let's just say we increase from 275 to, I don't know, let's do 3. I'll do more modest change. Let's say 350. And let's say we go from 150 to 250. And let's say we keep the same number of hours, and let's say the same number of therapy patients. You can see, oh wow, how your income would change. And then let's say if you did some massive kind of across the board increase to your fees, again, you can play around with how many patients you would need to keep to maintain your income. In a situation like this where patients are paying cash, you're going to keep a higher percentage of your patients. So that's why I have it like 70. Let's say have your current patient panel is 200, you keep 70% of your patients. So you go from 20 hours to 14 hours, but you're actually making more money. your post-transition revenue is 110% of what it was before. So again, I like numbers because they just tell you facts. Like there's they don't lie. It has nothing to do with feelings. It's just facts, and it helps you make kind of logical, linear decisions. Okay, so your session 3 bonuses, that moving up the value chain worksheet and the private practice calculator. Let me just show you some of the resources in Dream Practice Academy on this topic, on increasing revenue, on kind of squeezing everything you can out of your existing practice. So I have a whole module on this. This module is called Raising Fees and Generating Revenue. Moving up the value chain, which is a lot of what we talked about just now. How to raise rates with established patients. Kind of more, how do you, it's easier to raise rates with existing patients, but how do you do it for established patients? And some sample letters that you can use when communicating those rate increases to patients. How to do sliding scale without going crazy, because I do think, most of us, we like making money, but we didn't go into medicine to make money. It's not our primary motivator, and you do want to be able to give back, but how do you do it the right way without doing it out of fear and getting stuck with patients where it's really not the right patients that you want to be giving this sliding scale to. It's the patients that don't ask for it, honestly, that are the ones that it's most rewarding to do it with, or the ones that really need it, And so how do you navigate who you offer it to and how much you slide? Have the lesson on the private practice audit, which you kind of went through before, a lesson on transitioning from insurance to a cash practice, including kind of the steps, sample and announcement letter. My team will review your sample announcement letter, we'll review your private practice audit, and I can give you those recommendations about order of insurances to do it with. I have this lesson, I just like to be clear I'll often share my revenue numbers with people, especially earlier in my practice, because I don't know, I don't think it's like a big secret or anything like that, and I think that disclosure helps you know like what realistically is required to get to kind of the revenue that I know everyone wants to get at. It does require a lot of work, so I show my journey of how I got to those numbers over time. I didn't talk so much about advanced marketing this week. I kind of was deciding between the moving up the value chain versus the advanced marketing, and I decided this stuff I thought was higher yield for all of you. But we do have some advanced lessons about how do you establish yourself as an expert in a category? How do you, let me close that, sorry. How do you leverage traditional media? How do you get published in traditional media in order to enhance your reputation? How do you use social media as a sales tool? Creating content for social media? How do you do keyword research and use blogging as a strategy? And then also Google Ads. Okay, so I hope you'll allow me a brief overview of Dream Practice Academy, my paid program. I hope I've provided enough value for you over this week that you'll allow me a tiny bit of a sales pitch. But I also hope you'll see that I genuinely come from a place of value. Give me the chance to show you that I can provide you value in a linear, logical way. So let me ask you a question. What if one small shift today could completely change where you ended up 3 to 6 months from now? Because that is what's possible if you have an existing practice. I used the analogy earlier in the week of a car going 60 miles an hour versus 5 miles an hour. I like working with people at all stages. I like getting people over those emotional, mental, logistical humps in the beginning to get their practice launched. But it is like helping steer a car that's going 5 miles an hour. The steering doesn't make that much difference in the short term of the direction the person's going. If you have an existing practice, you're flying down the highway, and if I help you steer just a little bit, it's going to make a massive change in where it's going to massively affect where you end up. And you're in a place where you could either keep going where you're going, which is fine if that's what you want to do. If where your practice is fine, then that's great. Keep going that way. But I do think most people, there's room to optimize and to get off like this path that you're on, and make a change that could significantly affect where your practice is going to be in a year and 5 years. These practices, we're going to have them for decades. We're not like waiting until we retire in 2 years. You're going to have this practice for decades. So the right changes now can have a significant return for you. So I hope over these last days, I've earned your trust. And if this is what I want, if this is what I give away for free, I want you to imagine what I do for those who are in my paid program. Because at this point, one of three things is true. You have a private practice and it's going great with no room for improvement. Or your practice has some holes and missed opportunities, and you kind of want to take what I'm talking about or your own research and scale and optimize and fix it on your own. Or your practice has some holes and missed opportunities and you want to do it with my help. So I'm not going to talk about the first because I think rarely is a business going perfectly, right? So you're probably realistically deciding between these two things of like, do I really want to pay? I'm about to try to convince you to pay me between $15,000 and $25,000 for what I offer, which is kind of crazy, right? That's not a small amount of money. So why would you do that? Why would you do that when you maybe could do it on your own? So I'm not going to speak to emotion. You see how much I like numbers. I'm going to speak to numbers, and I'm going to speak to your wallet, because truly, and maybe this sounds crazy, but I hope I'll be able to demonstrate it in a moment, is if you have a practice and the right help helps you make even 5% more money and you don't want to pay for it, you're making a decision based on emotion and not on logic. And I'm speaking for someone who has spent tons of money. I'm about to show you how much money I've spent over the last 10 years on various coaching and programs. And I do it without even thinking, because I don't think on what something costs me. I think out of what I can get from something. And that's what has helped me make the progress that I've made. Programs I've invested in, and I was doing a little bit of research earlier and looking back. What I have here is the year, what I paid for, what it cost me, what the return was that I got from it. And I kind of put 2010 to 2017 in one lump, because that's when my little business journey started. It was I just graduated from medical school. I read Tim Ferriss' The 4-Hour Work Week, and it was blew my mind. I'm oh my gosh. And I did so many random little courses, and I was poor. This $5,000 or so that I spent over the course of my residency essentially was not chump change when you're making $55,000 a year or something. And I did not make any money from it. I actually did have little side businesses. I started a little side business making websites for people and all this stuff, and affiliate websites and stuff. So many things that, didn't really go anywhere, but that was fine. I learned things that ended up serving me later. I just didn't get a return from it yet. This was the first time when I graduated residency. It took me 7 years to graduate residency because I had cancer. I did 3 years of chemo, but I did graduate in 2017. This was the first time I spent a lot of money. I wasn't making money yet. This was my first year of my practice. I made about $60,000, because it was whatever, started in June. That was about what I made in the first 6 months. But I did learn some things that helped me kind of better position my services, better enhance my marketing. Didn't do any courses this year. This is what I made in the second year of my practice. Now in 2019, my cancer relapsed. So this is what I made up until about August, and then I had to have a stem cell transplant. So second half of 2019, stem cell transplant, hospitalized for a long time. 2020, I'm not in the hospital anymore, but it takes about a year and a half to even just recover from a stem cell transplant. So I did start working a little bit at some point, seeing some patients here and there, but you can see I kind of took a little bit of a dip. But I wasn't worried. I was I lived. I just wanted to live. I knew I would kind of catch back up. 2021 is when I took this one course that influenced me a lot, and actually a lot of what I teach in my program was inspired by this course. Spent around $8,000 on it. This is what I made this year. This was the year I started this program. These numbers are a combination of my my practice in this business. But I learned a lot, where then the next year is when I saw the return from this investment. I did this other course, which I actually didn't like this one as much, but I didn't care. At this point, I'm this guy helped me make so much money already. I don't care if that's, 10,000. Part of the way I think about investing in programs is that I don't need everyone to be perfect, but I'm not gonna make a decision based or avoid decisions based on fear. I want to shoot a lot of shots, and then not all of them need to hit it out of the park. Only some of them do. And so I'm relatively like confident or comfortable with that risk, knowing that it's going to pay off over time. But then you can see now I'm getting close to like almost hitting almost hitting 7 figures. And so that when 2024 rolls around, I paid this without even thinking twice. Oops, sorry, let me go back. And I'm going to pay it again. It's like this is an annual fee. I'm not even going to think about it twice. I'm just going to pay it all in full. I've paid almost $160,000 in courses over the course of the time that I've like got interested in business, but I've made millions from it. So I want you to think of like not what something costs, but if you think based on what you've seen so far, there's at least some tidbits in what I'm teaching you where you can make the money back and more. So now, if you'll permit me to show you the last page of the private practice calculator, which is return on investment. And I really think those who, honestly, it's whether it's my program or something, like I just want everyone to understand the concept of paying for things that help you skip learning curves, that help you make progress faster. So what I have here is 2 columns, cost and return. And I have all the tiers here, and pay in full is like the lowest out-of-pocket costs. Payment plans, there's a markup. So what I'm going to do for the sake of this argument is have the highest tier and the most expensive payment plan, which is essentially going to be almost $30,000, like once you're counting all the interest and stuff. And let's see, can I show you that it's possible to at least make that back? So at the top here is where you would put your estimating remaining career years. So I just put 20. If you're older, maybe it's less. Most of you are probably like, this is pretty realistic. Like you want to work for a couple more decades. Now I'm going to put somewhat conservative numbers of your rates, right? Because I don't want to put numbers where you feel like it's really unrealistic. So let's say I'm going to put $325 for a new patient rate. Let's say med management is, I hope you guys feel like these are conservative numbers. I'll be really conservative. Let's say $175 for med management. And let's say therapy is like $250. These are incredibly low. One of the things that happens if you're in my program is I list you on my website as a trusted provider. So I get traffic I get it into traffic internationally because I have a established blog, but definitely from every state. And so you can see all these people that are listed on my website in my program, and people get patients from it. And yeah, there's a lot of practitioners, but let's say if realistically you think you can let's say you get 1 therapy patient and 1 management patient over the course of the entire, I put that in the wrong column, over the course of the entire year. Okay, I think that's kind of conservative, right? 1 therapy, 1 management patient. Now, let's say you learn things like that moving up the value chain that help you raise your rates. Let's say you have a practice, your average hourly rate now is $250. Again, let's be like relatively conservative and say with everything I'm teaching, I get that up to $325. I don't think that's crazy. Let's say you're working 20 clinical hours a week. It's auto-calculating the return. Now, this is kind of saving money from launch time. Now, not a lot of you, I'm assuming most of you have already launched your practice, but if you haven't, what you would do is you put in here, like maybe it take you 6 months to launch without help, and you do it in 3 months with help, kind of the value of that time. But I won't even put anything in this category because I'm going to assume you all have existing practices. Let's say time saved from optimizing and administrative systems. This is a lot of what we talked about on Monday, and that I have lots of resources on. Let's say I just help you save, I'll be pretty conservative, 5 hours a week. Does that feel reasonable? Like I help kind of cut back your admin time by 5 hours a week. So you're saving that. Let's say I teach you strategies, both the kind of the fundamental marketing strategies, but also advanced marketing strategies where, let's say on your own, you're getting 2 patients a month, but with my help, you're getting 4. Again, I think that that's pretty conservative. In fact, let's even be more conservative. Let's just say 3. Let's say 1 additional patient a month. And this is just calculated based on intakes, not even counting follow-ups because the math would have been too complicated. let's say I help you reduce unnecessary overhead, like streamline your operations and reduce unnecessary expenses. Again, I'm going to be like very conservative and just say I help you save maybe $300 a month. In 1 year, that's $172,000. In 5 years, that's $861,000. And over your career, that's $3.5 million. And someone tell me if I have the math wrong, if the math isn't mathing, but this is why I truly think if you're struggling with this, you're not thinking logically, which is okay. No one's logical. I'm not logical all the time myself, you know what I mean? But it's coming from a place of fear. When logical objections are removed, what remains are internal fears. And I get it. Like, it's scary. First of all, it's scary to, even if you like are pretty sure that the program is good or that I know what I'm talking about, you still aren't 100% sure. There's still like those internal fears, and there's still a little bit of a leap of faith, I guess. But what I would say is that life is fun when you take those little leaps of faith. Don't set the bar that you have to be 100% sure. Set the bar that you're like 80% sure this is a good decision. That's what I do. That's how I make decisions so quickly. That's how I make progress so quickly, is like, yeah, I'm 80% sure this is good enough. Like I'm 80% sure something in this is going to teach me something that's going to be valuable over the course of my career. So I'm going to invest in it. I'm going to show you some screenshots of like, you know, testimonials and wins. I want this to be you. I want you to be sending me these messages in 6 months, in a year, that you're hitting revenue goals, that you're doubling your income. Here's someone who I was teaching him about going up the value chain, and he was saying he wanted to be able to charge $1,000 an hour. I'm like, it won't be easy, but you can do it. This is how. And he did it. He got his first patient at those rates with the strategies I taught him. You know, I want you to double your patients and get really excited. I'm not doing this because I just want to take your money. I want you to get the value out of it. So here's the structure of the program. Self-paced lessons, 10 deep dive modules with over 60 videos that include start to finish the framework for becoming an entrepreneur, launching your practice, optimizing and scaling your practice, and learning and improving your integrative psychiatry skills. Feedback and support on your business and marketing initiatives. We have lots of worksheets within the program we give you feedback on. I do live Q&A calls every 2 weeks to support you as you're learning and you're implementing. There's a community forum, which now has almost 300 people in it. So you get to benefit not just from kind of my direct coaching, but also the increasingly growing cumulative knowledge of the group. If you're in the one of the top tiers, we give you a personalized business plan and roadmap. And in the top tiers, personalized coaching, several one-on-one meetings. In all of the tiers, and at least flagship, premier, and platinum, you get an initial one-on-one meeting with me. In the more top ones, there's more one-on-one meetings with me and unlimited calls with my team, one-on-one calls with my team as well. And here's the price. And it's funny because like when people ask me sometimes what tier should I do, I'm like, I don't know. You'll make your money back in all of them. It's like a personal decision. I hope by the time I've gotten here that these numbers don't sound so crazy. You just see it almost doesn't matter. Like do what you think makes sense for your particular case, because either way you're going to get a return from it if you follow any of the steps. You know, flagship I kind of liken to like a group workout class. You know, it's group coaching. We do give you some personalized feedback. But it's like in a written format and like via screen record demos and stuff like that. Premier is when you're getting more of that one-on-one. We're creating that personalized roadmap for you, more one-on-one calls with me, and unlimited one-on-one calls with my team. Now, this is something new I'm kind of excited to present. What Platinum is, it's Premier plus something called a VIP Day. And VIP Day is you, me, 4 hours, some coffee, maybe a bathroom break or two, but us sitting down, you're going to give me access to, if you don't mind, all like your EHR, your financials, and we're going to go into all of those numbers. And it's a hands-on half-day strategy and implementation session with me, and potentially my team will be on it as well. I haven't figured out all those details, but definitely me. And we're going to audit everything. And you're going to come out of that half day with very clear guidelines and next steps of what's working in your practice, what's not, and what you need to do in order to immediately optimize. So this is for sure for people with existing practices and need help like immediately getting a return and fixing some things that are broken. And it's a complete financial audit of your practice, immediate feedback and action steps to optimize your patient panel, filter out those unaligned patients, offer optimized services to your ideal patients, a complete audit of your administrative systems and bottlenecks so we can optimize your workflows. And I also am adding in some personality and mindset assessments that are often used in corporate coaching because, you know, we all have different personalities and all of our personalities and mindsets have different strengths and weaknesses. And so I want to be able to customize things based on leveraging your strengths, but also hedging against and strengthening maybe some of your weaknesses and customizing the plan around that. And it's going to include like a pre-VIP day assessment, an intake questionnaire. You give me a lot of the data in advance so I can review it, and also a post-VIP day check-in so we can like ensure the implementation is going well. Now, because this is me and a half day and my time's pretty limited, I'm limiting this to 3 people only during this period, just because like I have to reserve the time on my schedule. For full disclosure, just because of the way my schedule is in this coming month, it wouldn't be till early April that we would be able to schedule it. So just so people know that. So it's just limited to 3 people. I'm testing it out. I think it's going to be extremely valuable, but the first 3 people who sign up are the ones who are going to get that. So now we offer a light tier option. If you've been in my previous workshops, you've maybe seen it. We're kind of depreciating it. The reason is that I don't want to offer people a half solution. You know, what I found was people were joining that to save money, but then I couldn't coach them and they weren't getting much of a result, and I don't want that. So what we're doing is depreciating it and limiting it to people who are at least 9 to 12 months away from launching a practice, because then it really does make sense for you to wait off and joining one of the higher tiers. At least you can get in there, start learning, but you have to upgrade within a 12-month period. It's limited to 1 year access that you have to upgrade just by paying the difference within that 1 year period into either the flagship or one of those higher tiers. So if you're ready to get going, then I want to offer an incentive for you to take the next step, which is if you join by our launch deadline, which is going to be Wednesday, March 12th, instead of getting 12 months access to the coaching, you're going to get 15 months. So an extra 3 months, meaning that if you're at all considering doing this in the next 3 months, you should just do it now. In addition, I'm going to give you my next level book bundle. These are all those business books that I talked about this week, just that I think are really good for those people in the more advanced stage of their practice. We'll give you those books. So the next steps are, and maybe we can drop the recordings landing page into the chat just again so people have it as a reference. We're going to email it out after, but at the bottom there's a form to schedule your call with my team. We now require you do a call with my team. We used to let people just kind of pay, but we want to at least have a conversation with you and make sure we're talking you through the tiers, you have an understanding of everything and making sure it's a good fit in everything. If you're considering doing it, I would schedule the call sooner rather than later, just because the people's schedule are going to build up, book up relatively quickly, just because it's a relatively short period of time. As soon as we get the payment from you, we'll give you access to everything, send you an onboarding email with your access and then the next steps. Now, I am a decisive person myself. When I paid $64,000 for that program I had, and every time I've spent any of that money, doesn't matter how much money I have or don't have, I know within like 10 minutes or 20 minutes if I'm gonna do it. I've like made the decision. And I think people who like come in, like they're ready to kind of get the next step and be decisive. I want to give you guys are special in my heart because I'm like that, and I want to give you an extra incentive. Both an incentive to make a decision, but also to come prepared when you're on your call. Like be prepared, know what questions you need answered in order to decide if it's a right fit for you. Honestly, if you end up deciding it's not a right fit, that's cool. I think what I don't want is people deferring a decision, and then you're like on my workshop in 3 months from now and you're in the same place you are now. You know, either you should do it or you shouldn't, right? Either it's the right fit for you or it's not. If you on the call commit and you pay on that call, you're going to get an extra 3 months of coaching. So instead of getting 3 months extra, you're going to get 6 months of extra within your tier. If it's the flagship benefits, you're going to get 6 months of extra flagship. If it's premier, you're going to get 6 months of extra premier. So just to add on that extra incentive for people to be decisive and really come prepared to ask those questions. So thank you for indulging my sales pitch. I hope you see that I genuinely come from a place of wanting to elevate people and offer value for what I do and teaching you how to do that in your own practice. And without further ado, let's do Q&A. I'm taking out my pause just so for the...
Really great questions about the content you presented earlier and then about the program.
Yeah.
So we'll start with questions from the presentation.
Sure.
So what are the ethical considerations, in your opinion, on providing other services that you can make a profit on, like selling peptides, IVs, photobiomodulation? Traditionally, doctors aren't supposed to gain personal profit from treatments they are recommending, but it seems that a blended physician wellness spa model where prescriptions are being given and adjust modalities are being promoted.
I'll tell you my personal opinion on it, and people can reasonably disagree. Certainly lots of providers sell supplements, sell those other treatments. Like, I guess if it's like IVs and things like that, that's different. It's a higher cost of delivery. I personally don't like selling supplements or anything like that. And the reason is that I don't want there to even be a perception of conflict of interest. I like fees to be clear. I like, yes, you're paying, but it's very clear what you're paying for and what you're getting. I'd rather, I recommend to people, make your money just in your appointment fees, where it's really clear, this is what I charge and this is what it's for. And then I don't make money off of like labs. I mean, I might charge a review fee, but again, it's very transparent. I think the amount of money you'd make off of something like supplements, it's like dollars. And to lose the potential trust and have there be any potential conflict, I just don't think it's worth it. That being said, lots of people do it. There's certainly business models. People would disagree with me, but that's kind of my thought on it.
So I want to ask, so psychotherapy is a part of medication management. So how do you charge separately for psychotherapy?
Oh, I guess when I say psychotherapy, what I mean is a longer appointment. I don't recommend charging differently based on what you're doing in the session. Charge the same for a 25-minute session or half hour, whatever it is, regardless of what you do. Charge the same for a 50-minute session, regardless of what you do. It's just more typically a 50-minute session or a longer session is what you do for psychotherapy versus you're not really, I mean, you might do some therapy within the context of a med management appointment, but you really need a longer appointment to get into a typical therapy typically what you would cover in a therapy appointment. So I guess that's what I meant. I might have been unclear.
This next question is from a psych NP. So she said, I'm in a transition period where I am going out on my own in the next 4 months. I'll build my panel much faster if I partner with Headway and take insurance, but learning from you over the past year through your free workshops and coming from a cash only practice, I'm drawn to only taking cash. But I also live in an area where it's really uncommon and almost unheard of, especially for psych NPs. Starting with cash only, I'll probably make the same with insurance. Is it worth to start with insurance and then transition in the future, or build slowly if I can afford it?
I would say that what that is based on is how much you're making now on your job. If you're making less, then you should, it might make more sense to go to an insurance, because even an insurance practice might be 2-3 times what you're making now, and you'll get there faster and you'll be able to leave that job faster and fill faster and have your practice, and then you transition it later. Versus if you're making more per hour and it's not that much different from what you would be making in an insurance practice, then what you'd want to do, making an insurance practice, then you'd want to just go straight to cash, knowing the cash practice will grow slower, but that's okay. Your side job or your main job gives you decent income, and then you do like a cross taper. So I would say it's based on how much you're making in your current job.
Someone was asking about the calculator that you were showing. Mm-hmm. Does the estimated expenses include healthcare, retirement contributions, or other benefits which may come with a salaried position?
No, so the way I did the calculator, the overhead is really just calculating like business overhead. What I tried to account for healthcare benefits in the calculator of like where it says like healthcare benefits 500. if you're also getting disability insurance or other benefits, I would add it there just so you can calculate your hourly rate. And I would add that to like your overall benefits, subtract away, vacation. That's kind of how I organize it on the calendar. And then you're trying to see what you need to charge to match that, knowing you have to pay for those things yourself in a practice. But yeah, the overhead of 1,000 is not including your personal health insurance and things like that.
How many extra hours per week should we allot outside of direct clinical hours in private practice?
Depends on how efficient you are. Maybe like 25%. I would say that for most people, 25 clinical hours a week is essentially as full-time as they want to be. For a lot of people, that's working Monday through Thursday full-time, and that's all they want to do. And then Friday, they may be returning some phone calls but not seeing patients, and they, go to the gym or whatever, do whatever else they want to do. That's how I would consider that for most people like a full-time practice, around 25 clinical hours.
Let's see. So do you recommend Facebook ads or Google ads to promote a solo practice when it's starting from the ground up?
Not when you're starting. It's so easy to lose money on this. Now, when I started my practice, I got a ton of patients from Google ads. There was just much less competition. So every major telesite company is pouring millions of dollars into the same keywords you want to target, like psychiatry private practice. Actually, my husband has a tech startup, and he's working with this advertising agency for his company. It's like a telemedicine company. And he was told, I don't know if it was like cerebral, psychiatry, I think it was psychiatry. They're spending $100,000 a day on ads. So if you go in thinking you're going to spend like $10 a day, you're getting outbid. Now, I do think when you're more advanced and established, ads can be reasonable approach, but only niche keywords. Like you cannot target just psychiatry. There's too much competition. Even like psychiatry Austin, it's too much competition. You used to be able to do it. It would have to be like integrative psychiatry or peripartum psychiatry, like some sort of niche keyword. Then you can get a return from it.
We'll do a couple more from the contents earlier in the at night, and then we'll shift into about the program. So do you have many patients that submit your high fees for out-of-network benefits? What's been your experience with that and their reimbursements?
Yeah, it's not that many of my patients that actually request super bills, but I'm sometimes surprised how much reimbursement patients get. Like, so my psychotherapy, I'm just thinking of this one patient, I charge her $450 for therapy, and then I think if I saw correctly my Reimbursify account, she was reimbursed like $350 or something for that appointment. Now, I think that was Blue Cross Blue Shield. I think maybe they're a little bit better with reimbursement. I kind of tell people, I don't promise, but I'm like, maybe like a third to half you could get it reimbursed. And you can use services like Reimbursify to look up patients' reimbursement benefits by insurance. You put in like the CPT codes you use, the person's insurance information, it'll output for you what their reimbursement will be.
So this is someone who's currently working in community health at a community health agency. And she said, it's hard to know if my community and in my area can afford my services. How would I know if my geographical area would impact, or how would I know that people who are here need my services and can afford those services?
I'd say like if you're in a more rural area that's less populous, you probably want to be expanding to marketing in your whole state and having like a telepsychiatry dominant practice. But there is no, I know people maybe disagree with me this, but there is no place in the United States where there are not people who want to pay out of pocket for better care or for additional services they can't get in the traditional medical model. I know because sometimes I have patients wanting to travel to see me from like people wanting to travel to see me from the Midwest, or one person from Alaska. And I'm like, really, there's no one between Alaska and me, but that's just because of the way I market and position what I do. But there are people in any state. And with this type of practice, you only need a really small patient panel to fill. because you're seeing those patients more frequently, you have a better relationship with them. So I would just rephrase the way you're thinking about the question. Instead of how do I know if they're there, they are there. Who are they and how do I reach them, and how do I make my services appealing to them? Like what I offered appealing to them so it feels valuable.
Awesome. Okay, so just one more and then we'll talk about the program a little bit. This person said they're interested in offering integrative and functional concierge psychiatry programs around a 4-month package and a 6-month package. The packages would include access to me and a functional nutritionist. Do you think this is doable as a new cash pay practice?
It is, but what I would say though, I've thought about that model, like a concierge model and packages. I personally have never done it. I certainly could, I would know how to and everything, but I just never felt like it would provide, I look for win-wins. I want it to make sense for me and for the patient. And I never felt like in my case, it didn't make sense because of the different types of patients I see. There was no like single package that made sense. I just prefer to charge fee for service, and then I just kind of see them as much as they need to be seen. Now, if the more narrow and subscribed your niche is and the more narrow and subscribed the outcome is, then the more it makes sense to create a package around it. But what you would just have to think through is like what the package includes. If anything is unlimited in the package, how do you make sure that's not getting overused by like a small subset of your patients? So you just have to really think through all those details, and it may be worth it or maybe not. I've personally never felt like it was necessary to do that, and I love my practice. It's a great practice, and it works for me. But it may work for you based on your niche. But I would just think through those details and like maybe run some numbers if it makes sense.
Awesome. Okay, cool. A couple questions about the program. So the first is, how well attended are the Q&A sessions that you host?
So I would say it's like between 10 and 20 people come, typically. Now, a lot of people are just like there and they don't have questions. So I basically stay on the call till everyone who has a question, it has been answered. So often that's 90 minutes. Sometimes actually people don't have questions. It ends a few minutes early. Sometimes it goes like 2 hours. But I stay on until everyone's had their question answered. And yeah, it's like 10 to 20 people.
Can you do these tiers stepwise? So if I wanted to start on flagship and then wanted more support later down the line, could I upgrade to Premier?
Yeah, you can. Yeah, what you do is you pay the difference. Now, the only thing is that with like the basically with flagship and Premier, after a year you get 12 months access, and then if you want to stay after that, you just pay like a la carte. It's either $250 for flagship a month or $500 a month for Premier. So if you have, let's say you're in flagship for 3 months and you want to upgrade, then you would like, we do some complicated calculations, but essentially you would either pay the monthly fee, or we calculate in the monthly fee for those months you were in it. Or if you joined with like 6 months of access, we would maybe just count 3 of those months, and then we'd start your year then. And then like you'd get a fresh year, or whatever your access would like restart when you upgraded.
Can a practice join this program and all practitioners, so like a group practice, benefit from the content?
So it's like single seat, single person. Now that being said, if you have a group practice, I'm not going to make every single person in your practice pay the whole amount, but we would have to, I'd have to think it through. Like this question has come up, but I've never actually had someone in a group practice want to have, the multiple people join. But you would let me know kind of what your situation is, and we could negotiate something that sounds reasonable, of like some sort of lower fee for like additional seats of your practitioners.
Can you explain the difference between the incubator program and how that differs from what's been discussed about Dream Practice Academy?
The incubator is just integrative psychiatry. Only a little bit of it is built out, only 3 of the 8 levels. And it's everything that's in incubator is in Dream Practice Academy already in the protocols. A lot of people don't realize this. the information's already in Dream Practice Academy. I just reorganize it in a little bit of a more stepwise way. So for those people who are totally new to integrative psychiatry, when you look at the protocol and it's this like 10-page document with a ton of details, it can get a little overwhelming. So I just broke it down into like little parts and separated them in Incubator. So Incubator is more like a process for like going through and gaining competency in integrative psychiatry, versus Dream Practice Academy, the protocols are references where everything is there for you and you kind of look up what you need as you need it.
This is someone who is asking, what tier would you recommend for someone who has been in business for 8 years and getting ready to transition to cash pay away from insurance?
So you have an insurance you've had insurance practice for 8 years. I would say like it depends on how chaotic the practice is, and how well you feel like it's working. Honestly, for people coming in with existing practices like that, I would at least say you should do Premier. And I'm truly not saying that like to get you to pay me more money, but in Premier, starting a practice is always basically the same. Optimizing a practice, the details vary a lot based on what the current situation is. The details of what my recommendations will vary a lot based on the results of your audit. And so the more I'm able to, my team's able to coach you through those specifics directly, honestly, the more benefit you're going to get out of what we offer. So truly for people with existing practices, I would say like at least the Premier one.
Do any of your mentees run a successful hybrid practice, or do all convert solely to cash pay? So I'm assuming this is people who do insurance and cash.
Yeah, I mean, successful people do it. I don't know if I'd call it successful, because I don't think ultimately I think it's kind of chaotic to implement and confusing to implement, and you're essentially managing two businesses without any benefit from it. You're kind of adding additional complexity, and plus thinking it through, I don't know what a logical reason is to do it. I know often people say, oh, well, I'll do med management here and I'll do integrative there, but are you not going to offer, are you going to turn off the integrative part of your brain with your med management patients? I know I can't. My brain is on. I can't turn it off. I'm not going to deny certain patients my skill set just based on what, how I'm seeing them. And I think it just leads to more kind of mental, emotional, even ethical confusion. I just think it's much better to have it be clear, which one you're doing it. Yes, if you're transitioning, there's going to be a stepwise transition. The way I advise it is kind of one at a time, uncredentialing strategically, but I don't think long-term it makes sense to have two. Let me actually just say one exception, which is that I do know a couple of people who they have two arms, and one is just kind of straight psychiatry, and the other is very specialized, like TMS and ketamine. And maybe they want the TMS to be covered by insurance, and they do it that way. That's the only situation where I really think it would make sense.
Can you explain a little bit more specifically about the integrative coaching and support that you offer in the program?
Sure. Yeah. Integrative psychiatry is both kind of studying some stuff, but practicing and discussing cases on calls. So basically, you get a patient, you can review the protocol. You may have an idea of what to do, but also there's a lot of information on those protocols. You're not sure how to implement it. You bring that patient to a clinical case. You can even post details in advance. People post lab results, people post clinical histories, and they'll walk you through it on a live call and kind of answer your questions. I might ask additional, essentially live supervision. And that way you can even do that prior to seeing the patient for the first time. Oh, I'm seeing this patient next week. What should I do? How should I think about the intake? I can talk you through it. Then you can come to the next call 2 weeks later. Okay, this is what I did at the intake. This is what happened. What should I do next? That's the way to learn integrative psychiatry, is through practice and getting coaching and case consultation as you go. So that's kind of how people do it. And I would say in addition, there's a lot of really skilled providers in the group. We discuss cases amongst all of us on the calls, and also you can post cases on the forum and kind of to get the hive mind of the group.
Awesome. Cool. I think that wraps it up for all the questions about the program. And just to reiterate, because I know there were a few questions about the slides being available, so we were figuring that out during the Q&A. So they will be available tonight on the recordings landing page. Everyone will have access to the slides from all 3 sessions this week.
Awesome. All right, I hope you all enjoyed this. Thank you so much for participating. Hopefully I'll see some of you soon in the program, and I hope everyone has a great rest of your evening.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, everyone. And bye, all of you. Have a good evening.